Hi, my name's Bo. I'm a women's health physiotherapist and I work at Sydney Advanced Physiotherapy, and I want to talk to you today about the pelvic floor and some facts about the pelvic floor. So the first thing, this is a pelvic model, and what we have is at the front we've got a bone here called the pubic bone, and it forms the pubic symphysis at the front, and just behind that you've got the bladder sitting there. Then you've got the uterus for women just sitting right behind the bladder, and then you've got the rectum right behind the uterus. And then underneath, what we can see from the outside is we've got the anus that's linked to the rectum, we've got the vagina that's linked to the uterus, and then we've got the urethra that's linked to the bladder. And so what's holding those organs up is what's called fascia. And so they're like sticky sheets of Glad wrap that get suspended up into our pelvis and into our sacrum, and that holds everything up. And those things can get loose over time with menopause or with pregnancy. And so what's under all those structures are the muscles. So these red things are the muscles, and there's the superficial layer which can wrap around the anus, can wrap around the vagina, and can wrap around the urethra. So that's the superficial layer that does a squeeze. And then we've got the deeper layer that's deeper into the pelvic floor, sitting closer to the organs, that does a lift of the organs. And both the superficial layer and the deep layer of the pelvic floor are important when we're activating the muscles. So what we generally see in the clinic is we've got two types of pelvic floors. We've got a floppy pelvic floor, which is generally, I explain it like, if you think about the pelvic floor as like a hammock, so if you see it from side on, it sort of attaches from the pubic bone to the sacrum back here, and if it's a really floppy pelvic floor, it'll be sagging down. And so people who generally have floppy pelvic floors are people who may have symptoms of prolapse, so that sort of heaviness feeling down here, or even pain down here because of that heaviness, or a dragging sensation. Or people may have leakage with what's called stress incontinence. So if someone does a cough or a sneeze, or they're lifting something and they leak, often those people may have floppy pelvic floors. And so what needs to be done is a strengthening program to help tighten up the pelvic floor again, to take that floppiness out, in order for you to support the organs once again. So it's supporting the organs more. So either the bladder, the uterus, or the rectum, any of those can prolapse down. And so by strengthening the pelvic floor, you're supporting those organs from coming down. In cases of stress incontinence, you may be strengthening to increase the support at the urethra, the bladder neck, but also if there's leakage coming from the rectum, then you may be increasing the strength to support the rectum and holding both the wee and the poo in. The other type of pelvic floor that you may have is what's called an overactive pelvic floor. So when the muscles itself, instead of it being really floppy, it's on all the time. And so people who have an overactive pelvic floor may get symptoms such as pain in and around here. It may also cause hip pain as well, because your pelvic floor muscles also link to your hips, and so it can lead to people getting hip pain around on the sides. But also vice versa, if you start getting hip pain and it's been there for a long time, it can actually cause pelvic floor issues as well. So that's another symptom. Other symptoms of an overactive pelvic floor may be difficulty inserting a tampon, or painful sexual intercourse, or if you've had recurrent urinary tract infections or thrush, that may be another cause of you getting an overactive pelvic floor. So it's important that if you have any of these symptoms of either having a floppy pelvic floor or an overactive pelvic floor, that you do seek help. It is very common for women to believe that any of these symptoms are just a normal part of life and we just have to put up with it. And it's almost a taboo topic that people don't even bring up with their friends or even their doctors. So I do encourage you to seek help, because things can be treated. These symptoms can be treated, especially for women who have just had a baby. To recover well from having a baby in regards to the pelvic floor, you can either have a floppy pelvic floor or an overactive pelvic floor, and both of these things need to be addressed. If you've had tears, if you've had stitches, you may have scar tissue there that needs to be addressed. Not addressing it can lead to long-term effects. And so, yeah, I encourage you to seek help to address any pelvic floor issues. Hopefully you've found all this information really helpful, and please share it with your friends. If you feel that you need any help, please seek advice. You can email us or ring us to make a booking. If you have any comments, please leave it at the bottom of this page, and hopefully we can see you at Sydney Advanced Physiotherapy.